My favourite thing about Christmas is the films, especially the Grinch, where he steals all the presents. I really like that one. A couple of weeks further on now, and I'm just planting one of my favourite plants in this little junction. I'm trying to get as many of the plants in as possible so that I can do the trenching for the electric supply and get the foundations in over winter. Now look at that. I've used the old American shovel to dig that hole, and it's perfectly round. And I'm putting in there a cornice, controversa variegata. I know I've got a lot of rubbish to clear up and sort out around it, but it's got a couple of years to grow in. I've been growing at Eggleston for a couple of years, and it's just a perfect, oh shit. Oh, of all the plants. Look at that! Look at that! This is a bloody square pot. I don't suppose it'll matter, but you're putting a square peg into a round hole. Of all the pots I've got here that are round, I have one bugger that's square. It's really annoying. However, let's just place it and see what it looks like. Don't want to fart around with it. There you go. That'll be fine now. Bugger. There. Looks a little lost there. However, it's wanged in. We haven't farted about too much with it. It's just been shoved in. And we'll just see how it goes. I'll tidy up around it. I keep cutting back that bloody Physocarpus there because I don't want it. I was hoping to avoid digging out the roots. One of the reasons I'm putting in lots of the background stuff and getting the trenching done is because I'm getting on a bit, and I don't really know how long I'll be fit enough to do the sort of heavy manual stuff. So there is some urgency to try and get it done this winter and summer. Yeah, anyway, trying to clear up some of these plants that we put to one side, ready for planting out when the borders were ready. I'm going to need to get in the borders because there's a lot of spring bulbs in these, and I don't really want this plastic Mypex down. So I'm just cleaning them up and putting them along this path. This is the old path, and I'll be renewing these, but I'll be doing the other side of the garden first, over the way there. So the path can be used for things to go in. The other thing for the electric supply, I've had the electrician round, and what I have to do for the armoured cable to go down to the workshop, I have to dig a trench. Now this trench is going to be 45 metres long. And it's 2 foot. It nearly knackered me digging that bloody 1 foot long, and it ain't even down to the 2 feet yet. So that's going to take quite a lot of time. And because of the nature of this house, you can't get any machinery around, and there's so many. What's that? Sounds like my old granddad first thing in the morning. He was the only bloke I knew that could fart from the top of the stairs to the bottom. Foundations are... it takes me a day to dig out these roots, these big old hazel roots. Because where that peg is over there to here, we've got the back line of the foundations is going in there. So the only way you can really dig them out without getting a chain and a tractor around them really is to dig round them bit by bit, like I did with that one. And eventually it's like a loose tooth, it just wobbles itself out. But it takes most of a day to just pick around at it. And there's another one down there. That's a big one. That's got to come out. That one over there is, where is it? Big bastard. Yeah, he come out all right, but he was a big sod. About 2 foot across. There's a definite twang of autumn now. Well, winter really. You alright, boy? You want it? He looks like he's saying, if you come anywhere near me, I'll nut you. How you doing? How could you shoot him? He's fucking tame. Oh well. Now this is quite interesting. If you look here, I'm just digging some holes for these pad things. And see where they go across for the foundations of the workshop. Now, topsoil and subsoil. Subsoil is the soil that's below the friable topsoil, and in different areas of the country it starts at different depths. Here you can see how lovely and dark the soil is, and we come down there and then we get to this brown section where it starts to turn to clay. You can see if I've just pulled some of this out, and that's a leaf. But you can see the clay in the soil. It's very, very puddingy. And really, you don't want to be planted into that. Now, some people will say, well, you can dig down and put topsoil into it. But I'm never quite sure that that's such a good idea. You can bring it to the surface and you can spend years adding lime to it to break it down, and there's all sorts of methods, but really you want to try and build up your topsoil. Either bring in topsoil and keep putting on leaf mould and any garden compost. But here at this garden you can see this where we've cut down for these foundations. There's a foot, 12 inches, 30 centimetres, 40 centimetres, over a foot of really good friable topsoil. You see, if I pick up a piece of the subsoil and try to squeeze it, look at that. It's like fucking one of Gordon Ramsay's puddings. Oh no, sorry Gordon. It's just like hopeless. Look at it. But if I break off a piece of the topsoil, look at that. That's what we call friable. It breaks down nicely. And this is actually wet, so if it was drier, it would break down even more. And when it's broken down into, you've turned it over into on your garden, and you've turned it over onto and it's all broken up and you've got a nice depth of crumbly soil. That's what we call the tilth. Friable is what it is, it breaks down, but the tilth is what we create on, say, a seed bed. You know, if we want to sow some seeds, we want a really nice tilth. You know, you want to plant into soil that covers your seeds nicely. There's about as much chance of sowing seeds into that as there is of, well, I can't say what I was going to say because it was obscene. So, at the risk of repeating myself, let's explain what's going on here. This is the other side of the pond, or will be pond when I work on it over the next year or so. This is where the workshop is going to go. I have to have some bearers, 5 really strong wooden bearers right across the site. This is for the floor to go on and stand proud of the ground. So there'll be quite a step up to it. As I think I've probably mentioned, I'm using these this pad system. The idea is to cut the foundations into the surrounding ground, because we're on such a slope here, as you can see. I'll come along here from the front of where the workshop is going to go, or the shed is going to go. I always just call it a shed. It sounds too grand to say workshop, or potting shed. To here, there's quite a big difference. It's about 18 inches, something like that, and then it goes up even more over into that corner where there's that dry stone wall ends. It did continue on, but the farmer at the back there, the previous farmer, just chopped it down and put in a wooden fence. No idea why. Might explain why I have a lot of stone in the garden. It's interesting actually. This old house is several hundred years old. It's an old stock barn, but it was owned by a man of the church, a canon, and before we bought it, it was a bit of a slump in the market, but he was offered a good price for it, and he said no, he'll wait and get more money for it. But actually the slump continued and it stood empty for 5 years, and he got half of what he was offered for it in the end. That was by Lisa. She's very good with money. Yeah, she's a Yorkshire woman. Yeah, you can see here I'm marking off these bearers. I need them to be 2,170 millimeters long, because the actual outside of this shed is 4,340. So half of that will take us from one pad to the next, and then it's just a question of getting them level. I need 5 of these bearers, so it's really hard because the ground is so unlevel and slopes both ways. I know I keep on about that all the time, but it does present problems. But you can see I can put the runners, the bearers, I can just dip them into the ground over there, and that saves me having to take out all of this soil. I mean, I've had 40-50 barrow loads already out of here. We'll use that on the stream when we come round to doing it, but the job's coming on. It's very slow, and there's lots of stuff here. I may backfill all this. Of course, I could just put gravel in, and each of these would then become like a French drain. You know, it's the whole point of having this workshop, and I explain to people, is to sort of go into some depth about things. So we can sit in there and we can analyse a plant and how to propagate it, how to grow it, what it likes, not just from what books say, but from experience of growing these things. Some of the harder subjects, but some of the easier ones as well. It'll be nice to go through some gardening terms, like an A to Z of gardening, but not done in a difficult manner. I can't do them in a difficult manner anyway, because I'm quite sort of like common. So we're just, I'm looking forward to being able to do that, to sit down with everybody. I know we don't physically meet, but it'd be nice to sit down and just talk about stuff that you can do in your own garden and what things mean and why we do things, and just do it in a relaxed manner with no long words, not too sciencey. We don't want to get the whole sort of like squinty about stuff. Yeah, but that's the whole point. And we can apply things in the garden itself. It's not a commercial thing. It's, you know, it's not a great big enterprise. It's just an ordinary English country garden, and we can do some jobs together, so to speak, virtually. Well, I'm not doing it virtually. I'm actually fucking doing it. You know, break my bollocks. Yeah. But you can do it virtually, or you can do it in your own garden, of course, or just get some ideas, or just adapt it to the ways you want to do things. And if anybody has any questions, just send them in, and we'll maybe go through them on video, as long as they're not like obscene or anything. Like, well, I'm not too bothered about that, to be honest. I think I'm quite unshockable. Right, that's it. What a morning. Trying to get the dogs out and before the gales or storm. What's the last one? No, the new one is called Barra. Yeah, Barra. Apparently it's another Welsh name, but I know it as a Hebridean island. I had promised we would get some stuff from Eggleston and see how things are going over on the nurseries. I couldn't find anybody intelligent to sort of film anything, so anyway, here's Thomas.
So it is, well, we're into December now. It has been, I mean, I'm not keeping tally of how many days it's been without Malcolm, to be honest. I just, it could be like, I could have one of them things that you see on film and have days without disaster. And days without Malcolm. not that I'm calling Malcolm disastrous. But we're just sort of on the, getting everything sort of ready for winter. Obviously there's going to be a lot of downtime over December when people are off on different things. Just sort of awaiting for more bare root coming in. These are just a handful of little whips, or that you often see them called. We've got bare root, there's some copper beech, some crab apples and some English oak. It's just nice to have some things like this, because when we've got these in so young, we can just take them into nice trees, make them whatever size we want. But we should hopefully be getting all the sort of grafted or budded trees in the next couple of weeks. Same with our soft fruit bushes, so all the currants, the blackberries and the raspberries. But yeah, I don't know what else I'm going to say. I can stop there if I think of something else after tea.
Well, they're always lovely seeing winter, these colorstem willows and the Salix alba britsensis. But that's not what I'm filming for, because we film them every year, we've all seen them already. But what I'm wanting to give people an update on, it's something that Malcolm actually mentioned in the last video, and is this tilia that myself and him, well, pollarded really, it wasn't a true coppice, it was just cutting off at a height. And as you can see, I certainly haven't killed it. And unfortunately it's only just sort of losing its leaves now, so it hasn't, the branches haven't been exposed to the sunlight truly yet to get them to colour up. But you can see some of these ones at the extremities that they're starting to really show off. So when it's fully lost its leaves and has a bit more cold weather on it, it'll look like it's on fire. It's really worked out well. Now, unfortunately, it has done what I expected. It's what you always get with the tilliers, like when you see them as street trees. You get all this growth at the base that whatever you do, you cut it off. It's just gonna look like a stubbly chin. But the rest of it, we've certainly got plenty of top growth. And what we'll do, I know when I was down at Hilliers, they have them in the winter garden and they prune them annually, but I think that's a bit excessive. So these ones, we'll probably leave this to grow for another year at least. I might prune them every other year or every third year and just keep it at that. But yeah, we'll revisit this when hopefully it colours up some more. The only real little bit of damage that we've had within the gardens from Storm Arwen has, well, unfortunately been this heptacodium that, I mean, we've lost half of it. There's still one half still standing. I think we're going to try and leave that half for now. We don't think it's unsafe, and if it comes to it, as you can see there where it's been limbed in the past, it does seem to regrow, so there's no reason that in a year or so we can't cut it back to that and have it just as a larger shrub as opposed to a smallish tree. But yeah, so this is it. It's a nice tree. It's a really unusual thing. It's Heptacodium jasminoides, but I'm fairly certain the species name's changed now. I think it's something like Myconioides or something like that. I think it's commonly called the Seven Suns tree. I couldn't tell you, to be honest, why it's called that. I just know that is what it's called. And I don't know whether Malcolm can maybe have a little caption at the bottom as to why. But yes, I mean, waste not, want not here. So I've obviously logged it all up. That'll go to our top woodshed to dry for a couple of years before we'll use it. This is a lovely, unusual tree, the Heptacodium. You can see what's happened. It's obviously just been a dual stemmed one. It's just lost one half of it. And there's these lovely heads of white flowers in this really quite unusual sort of peel. There's like peelingness to the bark, actually. You can notice it as you go a bit further up. But it is something actually that, in the time I've been here at least, we've never actually had it for sale, unfortunately. I've just known it from this one specimen plant we've got in here. But fortunately we didn't have any other damage in the churchyard. I just was dreading the potential of them two great sycamores coming down, but they didn't, so always look on the bright side here. Well, I've just been over in our woodshed there, just chopping some logs that we've had laid for a couple of years. We're chopping some branches up to make them into logs, and I couldn't help but notice in the field here, this monster beech has lost the battle against Storm Arwen. Now, I mean, in the storm's defence, this beech has looked quite unhealthy for the last few years. I saw it this year and I thought, ooh, it looks about goose.
You can get a slight sense of the size of this thing. There's Phil. How tall are you, Phil?
5'9".
5'9". I would say that's about accurate. It's strangely beautiful, but it's quite poignant. I don't know how old this tree will have been, but it's over now. Gosh, the power of the wind. That's about 5 or 6 feet deep, and it's just uprooted, literally just uprooted and fallen over like a dead soldier.
To be honest, I'm just glad it wasn't the copper beech, our ancient copper beech that came down, because it too has, over the last few years, looked quite unhealthy and unhappy. But nowhere near as much as this one has. But, oh, I mean, it is just monstrous. Now I'm getting close to it there. It's about my height across. And I mean, the root ball that's come with it, you can see there, it's all rotted and different things, but this shows the power of nature. I mean, this storm was particularly bad because the wind just came from a completely different direction to normal, so that's why it caused a lot more destruction than like the storms have passed. I mean, the last bad one was Storm Desmond, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but this one has certainly been a stinker.
Just the amount of wood. What have you got, Phil?
It's just one tiny little branch, but it feels, you know, so heavy. When you think about the weight of this, you know, tons of wood.
That's my husband. Very long suffering, but pleasant.
Right. So down here we've got all the hostas moved down onto this wall now, so they're nearer to the potting shed, ready to be worked on in the next month or so. We'll probably try to get the hostas done before the new year, because they're one of the things that they're quite happily sat in wet compost, because like I say, I try to do most of the perennials in the after New Year, but the hostas are ones that we tend to just do as and when we have the time. But we always tend to move stuff around at this time of year in blocks like that, just to have them all handy, so we have to empty areas, get them pressure washed, ready to get the plants put back into place. And I've just come up here. This is some of the little bit of damage that was left after Storm Arwen, but let's be honest, it's nothing too destructive, and it's not going to be a great chew on to get it fixed. So just gonna wander up here and see how Clara is getting on. As I say, she's been on also clearing some beds. She's on at the moment, sort of tidying up the delphiniums. See there, she's emptied that bed, got it nicely brushed, ready for Lisa to unleash the pressure washer. This one's already been done. And this one, she's just getting all the delphiniums nice and tidy, because they're just going to sit like that for the most of the winter.
I've already tidied these.
Ah, see that?
Because the other day, the leaves are so frozen on them, I already couldn't take them off. So I couldn't do much then, but I'm just tidying the aqualegias away. This is red hobbits. Quite a lot of these. Which is going on the wall over there, but I'm just sort of cutting them back and then doing a bit of weeding and cutting away. But it's a bit.
Yeah.
They're not as easy to cut these because it's just because it's so wet and like the blade won't really cut them that well.
Yeah. So things like these aqualegias, we tend to overwinter them on the wall just to keep them away from the wet more than anything, because typically, well, especially up here, I know at home, the aqualegias are just growing in all my cracks and crevices. So sometimes in pots left over winter, they can just be a bit unhappy. So we just put them on the wall just to give them a bit of protection from the winter wet. And at least having them on the wall, they're outdoors, it's a bit more natural than having to have them inside, isn't it?
Yeah, and careful not to overfill with the barrow. What happened once today.
Oh, what have you done?
But, no, actually, to be honest, I didn't really crack the pots, but there's a few pots that look like they've been cracked by me. but they haven't. They were just literally.
They were like that before you
I
started,
know,
were they?
I promise you, they're already like that. You know. I mean, they're all crammed together on that bed.
Yeah, very
I'm actually
convenient
being
for you,
honest.
isn't it?
I'm being honest. No, I'm being honest.
So, but
This will get edited out.
but
Right,
you're still here anyhow, because we had someone asking on the last video if you'd left.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that last night. I was thinking, I wouldn't leave.
I know.
Why
We should.
would I have left?
I know. We should be so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, very lucky to have you too.
Yeah, exactly. I can do this now. Been the boss, just sort of pootling round with a cuppa in hand.
I've got so long legs, it's so easy. But people, right, they would literally get stuck above the crotch area, so.
And this is relevant because part of the job. Yeah, there's a pot down here, missus.
I know, I put it in the corner so nobody would trip over it. Health and safety first.
And obviously still some more conifers. You can have some of them, they haven't fully turned yet, some of the little mugos that go golden in the winter. They're just on the way to turning golden. They're not quite the full intensity yet. And obviously we have the borders that John is slowly but surely cutting back. And I'll just drop into here to have a look. There we go. Some of the stuff we have to have inside. I mean, these salvias, they're still flowering and going strong. They were cut back hard when they were first looking tatty. And it's just given them a complete new lease of life. They look quite fantastic, really. Then we've got the, I never know how to say its name, convolvulus. Convolvulus? Is that bloody thing? That's a beautiful flower, just like a bindweed type flower. It's a little Mediterranean shrubby thing. Really quite tidy. Has a lovely flower, but obviously just needs a little bit of cover when it's so young here. So got like the hardy fuchsias, the sisters. Do love, I mean, as much as I don't enjoy the job of bringing all the stuff indoors, because it just means it's stuff you have to keep an eye on over the winter for watering, I do like getting in and getting it all nice and tidy and organised, nice and clean. And again, I mean, it's funny you got some things like this. Jasmine here, just fully in leaf still. They're just not even looking like, I mean, some of them are turning a bit, but not even looking like turning and dropping the leaves yet. But yeah, over the next few weeks, it'll just be a case of getting everything moved bit by bit and getting it all processed. And yeah, like I say, it's all sort of going to kick off in the next couple of weeks with the bare root trees coming in. Then we'll really be hitting into the potting quite extremely. We tend to leave the perennials now until the new year. I feel like the benefit from being potted and divided as late as possible, really. Well, as early as possible, I suppose, for the next year, but as late in the winter as we dare, just because I sometimes think they're sitting too long and they're sulking a bit. If they're potted on too early. But I'll just go on and lastly have a look at the lovely display that the girls did for the winter. I mean, obviously there's still some basic stuff, just like the Christmas trees, but as you can see there, lovely bit of colour. And look at that Cotoneaster. As much as I hate the thing, that's pretty nice, isn't it? Perfectly overhanging. More little Cotoneasters. Some of these Pieris. just waiting to pop. And the dogwoods as well. Are you now?
Yeah, we're talking about how it's...
What you're gonna say? Huh. Right, well, I'm gonna go get me dinner.
Hello.
Yes, I'm coming in for my dinner.
We rather next. We'll let you know.
I can't believe I'm stuck with her now. Malcolm's gone. Anyhow, one last thing to leave you with. Doesn't that apple look like it, just exactly like an arse?
The foundation for the workshop is just about done now. I'm just doing some infill. You can see these easy pads to give them some extra weight and make sure they don't move, but still reusable if I ever needed to move the shed. I'm putting ballast over the top of them, and I'll put a little layer of pea gravel over the top of that. They're being secured at the front with the brackets that come with the easy pads. They're very expensive, but they're very, very solid. You can see how you can adjust them now. Here, as we go down the slope, they get higher. They're very, very effective. And very, very powerful. These will take a 2.5 ton shed. You can get them that will take a heavier shed. We'll also put ground anchors in the end. But I'll show you when I've finished them. I just need to tidy them up a little bit, get rid of the old ballast around the side, and then put a nice little finishing layer of pea gravel. After that, I think I might be able to lose quite a lot of the smaller stone that I'm not going to be using in the garden that's edging the paths. I can lose that between the rafters. I keep calling them rafters, they're bearers. It's not a roof. But they're all nicely level now, and if over winter, they'll sit there for about 4 or 5 months now, and if over winter there is some sinking, I don't think there will, because it's a very heavy base they're on, really heavy soil, very solid, and yeah, if there's any movement, then I can just adjust them before the workshop arrives. I'm actually quite enjoying this sort of like hard labour, this sort of hard landscaping stuff. But we need to get this done so that we can have some reasonable times and go into some depth about plants and some interesting stuff, and look at, you know, we just need somewhere where we can sit down and talk about things and then show you how it's done in real time. If you're looking for little videos that are going to be filmed in sort of 2-second shots up somebody's nose, concentrating on their smile and good humour, it ain't going to be them. But you will get a lot of information from them. Assuming I don't pop my clogs beforehand. The people have written to me and said they're really looking forward to seeing this pond redone. Now, I might have mentioned it before, but I'm not really a pond person into water gardens. But there is a guy on the videos on YouTube that's, I mean, there's lots of them that do water features, and they're all very, very good. But the one I get on with the best, who sort of is more understandable for me, and a bit more, I need somebody who talks about things relatively slowly. You know, I'm not the fastest car in the garage. Anyway, and that's Crystal Clear Aquatics. I find the lad on there very, very watchable. I'll put a link on here. I'm not, as I always qualify, I don't know, if I put a link on, it's because I actually like something. I don't get paid for that, or you know, if I recommend a tool. We will review some tools actually, but without the manufacturers knowing, because frankly, you have to be honest about things. It gets you into trouble sometimes, honesty. It's supposed to be the best policy, but throughout my life I've found sometimes when you're honest about things, you hurt people's feelings. I don't know how to get around that one. Okay, that's all finished now. Now the next job, of course, is to bring some electricity. So this is an armoured cable. This has to be buried 2 feet deep, right up to the house. Which means I've got to bust another bollock digging a 2-foot trench. For which I am going to employ, because we can't get machinery around here, I'm going to employ these 2 tools and give them a little run out and see if they're any good. They're by a company called Roughneck. Tough World, Tough Tools. We'll see how they do. The one is a trenching spade. That's the one on the left, and it has a really long point. And the other one is a trenching shovel, which, if you don't want to bend your back too much, is probably quite important to have to get it out of a slit trench. They are long handled, which is ideal for a person like me. They're not particularly expensive. They're about £20 each, something like that, just over. I think one was about 16 and one was about 24, something like that. But I bought them as a pair to review them. This I did with a border spade because it was thinner. Like in the last video, we were talking about English spades and how difficult they are. Well, it was extremely difficult because you've got to bend down so far. Obviously they're a specific job, but there are times when I can imagine that I will need them for like thin trenches and things. If not, I just sell them off afterwards at sort of half price once I've had the use of them. They should be, that's assuming they're any good. We'll try. I'm only going to do about a yard a day. I've got about 55 yards to do. So I should get it done by the spring. I'm not going to say I'm doing a yard every bloody day because it's hard, but we'll just tickle away at it, and we're going to run it up the side of the path. You can see where the cable is. That's not strictly where it's going to go, but I'll have to start the other end because it's got to go under some paving. I have to say the trenching spade is absolutely brilliant for digging these lily holes. I'm just on planting some lilies. I used to really like lilies, and I haven't grown them for many years other than like for sale, but I actually like the plant. There are some people that don't. I have a nurse friend and she doesn't like them because of the smell of them. She used to run work in a hospice, and I think for some reason she didn't like them. Well, I think it's something to do with the smell. I'm not sure. Anyway, I haven't got any sharp sand. Normally when you're planting lilies, it's a good idea to put some sand in the holes. So I've just got the ballast. I'm just pulling out some of this is the ballast I'm using for the paths. I'm just getting rid of some of the bigger stones, but that's perfectly fine. It's a sharpish sort of sand. So I'll put a handful in the bottom of each hole. What this does, it just stops the lilies sitting on the soiled surface itself. And I'll put a little bit around the actual bulb. These holes are about, I would say, 12-15 inches apart. That's 30 to 45 centimetres, somewhere around there. Is it? No, 12 to 18 inches. And I'm just going to put one bulb, these are the lily bulbs, and sit them on these beds of sand. I'm going to put a little bit of the gravel around the bulb as well, I think. Down the expense. There we go. And just sit them nicely on that bed there. It just helps with the rotting of the of the scales from coming up through the crown of the bulb. It's they're very, very good. We'll have to go into how you can propagate lilies. It's an interesting plant because there's lots of ways you can do them from cuttings. You can do them from bulbils along the stem cuttings, and you can do a method called scaling, which is very, very interesting. You know, each of these scales can be, if it's put in the right environment, can be made to grow into another bulb. You can do them from seed as well. We used to trench them years ago. I must stop saying years ago. I sound like a right old twat. You know, now I put when I were a lad. So, I don't know what variety this is. I bloody forgot. I didn't even look. This is a variety called Black Beauty. It's a speciosum lily. I just like the look of it. Most of them I've just bought 5 of each to give a nice little clump in the summer, sort of like latish summer. It's very hard filming this. I might try and get Lisa to do some tomorrow because it makes me a little bit wobbly.
Thomas, whoa!
That is fantastic.
Christmas tree.
Is this for home?
It's for the shop here.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. And done so slickly.
Golden Christmas tree.
I know.
You have to plant a new one now.
Yeah, we'll come back for that in 20 years. How old is it, Thomas, then?
I could probably give it exact age. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe about 10-year-old.
10 years old. 10 years old. And it's going to decorate the
Sell it for your little woman's. Ask me to take it down.
I'm so shallow. Thank you, Thomas.
All right.
And here it comes. Thomas, you're going to make a brilliant husband for somebody one day.
Oh, perfection.
Farthest like one.
Thomas, that is so much bigger than anything Malcolm has ever given us. Take a bow. Thank you. Look how high up she is.
Can you
Come on, darling.
stable it, please? I don't feel very
Stable it, stable.
No, I don't feel very so.
Health and safety. Clara, that wasn't very Christmassy, was it?
Putting the stamp.
I'm going right back to see how normal it is.
There we go.
Thomas, you're not holding that ladder very tight.
Wait, is that
She's done it! She falls. Good girl. Clever lass, you've done it. Perfect. Yes.
Oh, it's so pretty.
The garden feels very sleepy today. It's what date is it today? It's 12th of December, so it's only just over a week to the shortest day, and it does feel very sort of calm and dark. I'm sitting under our little angel, because that seems like a good place to sit and do a Christmas poem. I've taken to calling Malcolm the Grinch of late. I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier, because it fits him perfectly. I'm sure I'm not the first who's called him that. I mean, I've heard a lot of things other people call him, and frankly, he's lucky to get away with the Grinch. So it seems odd that he should ask me today, oh, maybe you might want to read a poem from the Grinch, because it seems to be one of his favourite characters. I think it's written by, well, I know it's written by Dr. Seuss, who needs no introduction. People say it's autobiographical, but I don't know enough about him to know that. But it's always a favourite anyway. I hope you like it. This is the bit in the Grinch where he thinks he's managed to spoil Christmas for everybody, and he's sitting watching them all wake up. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. He paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded glad. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
Are you filming? Fuck. Well, I wasn't ready. You're supposed to say action or something. Yeah, I've just finished planting the lilies that I've got. I don't know whether this bit's going in front or back, but yeah, they'll be nice in there, and I'll be able to just tie them to here. And if I don't like them, like all things, they can be moved at a later date. It's very hard to find anything that's worth doing these days, much so worth showing you, but if you just have a look at a couple of things. Oh, it's just worm casts on dog shit. I'll come back to these in a couple of weeks' time, after Christmas perhaps, and we'll show you how to prune these so that we can get them along, and I'll explain it to you. on the pier at the moment, these are hypertufa troughs. So I know I'm going to sound like a twat, but I'm actually going for a contemporary style here. So we're going to fill these up with some nice alpines. And the thing is, the good thing about troughs is that you can always move them if you want to later on. But they're really heavy. They are hypertufa. They're about 25 years old now. That's looking nice. That's Euonymus elatus. I think it might be compactus. If you come round, you can see it has that beautiful autumn colour. It's very late this year, but here you can see this lovely winged bark. The stems are almost square. They have these winged things on them, and then it becomes corky, much like a cork bark maple. You remember last year we trimmed this one back and discovered it because it was all locked away under here under a load of rubbish, and now it's looking really nice. This is this dieback you will get on maples. It's nothing to worry about. You can just leave it, or just, like I do if I can be bothered, just break it off. It's just that things keep growing in the autumn now. They keep growing and growing. We don't get these firm seasons any longer. And stuff keeps growing right through to Christmas. And this is the crab, the weeping crab apple red jay. I like weeping plants because, to me, they're graceful. They add movement, and you can have like a nice canopy to walk under. But my favourite plant at the moment has to be, and you've seen this before, but it has to be this weeping holly, Perry's weeping silver. And you can see it's just starting to reach an age. It's taken a long time to get here, and you can see it's a female, and it has these lovely berries on. And can you imagine this when it's a little bit more mature and it's laden in them? It will be the most handsome and graceful of trees. I'm not sure whether you can classify a female tree as handsome, but it will be graceful. And I'm going to clear up here. We've got paths to make, and I can't do much up here, but I think I'm going to get the trilliums planted up at the base of this wall down here in 2 or 3 patches. Again, we can move them later if we want to, or just spread them around. I'm not sure they will do very well in this garden, but you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, shit or bust. You just have to try. As you can see, the foundations are done. There's not much else to say really. I'm not sure there will be another video until about maybe we'll do one for Christmas. But as I've said before, it'll be a lot better once we have the workshop and we get into spring and there's loads of stuff we can talk about and go into depth with. And I'm hoping Lisa's going to give me some sciencey stuff so that we can have like a squint session every week for, you know, the technical stuff. Right, up on there where I'm going, we're out on a walk in Arkengarth in the Yorkshire Dales, and up here it's very interesting how we've got a natural graft. This beech tree here has the branch from the base has rubbed against the other one, and the pressure has caused it to graft into the other tree. It's quite amazing. When we graft things, we just take account we're just doing what nature often does on its own. So, very, very interesting. It is amazing to think that Britain is crisscrossed by tracks, and these tracks like we're on now would have once upon a time have been the main roads, the arteries that divided one town from the next. Like here in the Dales, carriages, horses, any sort of beasts like cattle would have been driven along these roads. Sheep. It's no wonder when you look at it how you could be easily robbed along these places. Look where Pepper is now, and it's just like prime brigand land. You're so far removed from what we're used to today. If you wanted to get a message to your partner or parents or aunts or uncles 5 miles away, it was a major task. Well, it's been an interesting walk. So, look in this here. There's a little microcosm in here where it's warm and all the bracken, the ferns are staying green, and it's nice and humid, and there's beautiful mosses just everywhere. Look down there, it's absolutely lovely. The rocks are covered with it. And it's mid-November. What a lovely walk. Come on, let's get you on your knees. It's late November now, and it's as warm as anything. I could be here, you know, in my Speedos. I'm sorry about that image in anybody's head now, but I could be.